to Athletics LLC with Lamar, Lucius, Big League Chew, and my man Clyde. You're about to be schooled in all things track and field. This is experience.
Yes, sir.
We are talking past, present, future. Y'all listen up. Let's go.
Good evening, all. Welcome back for a fun week because we have a great guest with us this week. First, with our introductions, we've got Lamar. Wear your mask.
I just now caught that.
We've got Clyde.
What's going on?
Lucius.
Good evening, everyone.
And in true LLC fashion, we've got Vincent Elvin Johnson Anderson. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Hello. Glad to be here.
He's all in. He's bought in and ready to go. We've got names and everything. So we're going to jump into the deep end. We're just going to get head in, belly flop first. Definitely coach first, but what are the biggest differences in regards to philosophies, in your opinion, for the men's and women's short hurdles? Oh, you know what? I put you on the spot. You don't have to go first if you don't want to.
No, you said coach. You're talking about me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
that's a deep question. Strangely, I don't think any of those differences, I don't have a philosophical difference as far as how I approach the event. My setup, how I set up the event varies widely. You have to treat it like two different events. But I predominantly train the female hurdlers, whether they're legitimate sprinters or not. I train them primarily like a sprinter. And the same with the male hurdlers. I train them predominantly like a sprinter, even if they're not a legitimate sprinter. So, I have that in common. And then it's a matter of, it's a different event because proportionately the average male is not 9 inches taller than the average female. The average female is like 5'4", 5'5". The average male is about 5'9". So there's only about a 4-inch difference in their average height. Yet the barrier difference is disproportionately higher for the men. It makes it a little bit different event in terms of how often I run at the higher barriers. So there is that. The other thing, because the barriers are so much lower on the female side, I guess a good word is shocked. I'm shocked at the level of pure, unbridled, wild aggression that the top women in the sport display. And I've seen a lot of women who run 12.7, and I've coached 3 women who run 12.8. That's the fastest that I've ever coached. And one of those females was fast enough to run 12.2, but she wouldn't take off the ground. So when you see these women, the way they hit those things, I think a lot of times it's more the really difference between the really, really great hurdlers and the people who run 12.6 and 12.7, who are very, very good hurdlers, is just that unbelievably intense willingness to flirt with death. They're really, it's amazing to watch them train.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of co-sign a little bit there too, because I don't have a bunch of large philosophical differences either. I think that for the men, the faster I get them, the more cautious we have to be, because they just don't seem to handle the speed as well if they're too fast. On the women's side, I think the faster I get them, the more fearless they have to be to handle the event. As Vince said, flirting with death, I call it flirting with disaster. I think also the other issue you have with the men is the spacing deal. We had Alan Johnson on earlier, and he talked about you have to have the ability to choreograph the event and put your feet down in the same place every single time. And that's what makes a great male hurdler. I tend to believe the same with the women. I don't think the hurdle is a big deal for the women. I do think the better hurdler you can make them, obviously the better time they're going to run. But when you talk about the height of the hurdle in relation to where the hips are for me, is a huge difference when it comes to men and when it comes to women. So the cues I give at takeoff and landing and such are vastly different. But the actual training model itself is like almost identical.
Yeah. For me, I think that the biggest philosophical differences come not at all in the training or training models. It comes in the makeup of the athletes. It's, I think the first thing you have to have if you're looking at somebody who's going to be an elite female hurdler, the very first thing they have to be is aggressive and fearless. And I don't think it's possible to be a great female hurdler and not be those two things. If you're not aggressive and you're not fearless, good luck. On the men's side, it's, there's a lot of rhythm and artistry to it. And they can be different kinds of people. But for the most part, you're talking about alpha females that run the women's hurdles. And in a room full of alpha females, it's the baddest one that's a hurdler. So I guess for me, the only real philosophical difference is just kind of the makeup of like what clay you pick, I think is essential.
That is very well said by all. But Lamar, you went in the direction that I was leaning towards with that, which is interesting for me. As a person who used to run hurdles, that was always what I found interesting, both as an athlete interacting with the coaches that I had over the years, and as a spectator of the men versus the women in the short hurdles. It's exactly that. The women's hurdles never change from junior high.
I'll be up here with a lesson, so I got you.
And yeah, definitely hit that button, sir. The women's hurdles never change from junior high through the Olympics. And so because of that reality, they can get away with being just ridiculously, demonstratively more aggressive than the men. The men, I do see the event as a little bit more artistic, as a little bit more difficult to navigate because of the hip issue that Lucius pointed out to, because of the spacing issue that we all spoke to. Women who don't create space very well can still survive with the races to a certain point. If you're talking about running 12.2s and 12.3s, well then not so much. It's, finite, things there. But with the men's race, like if you're not on exactly where you need to be and exactly on your spaces, you're going to crash and burn or have to slow down massively to even negotiate the barrier. And so, what I've always found is when we inherit kids from the high school system, they don't understand, a lot of them don't understand the rules and the details of how to create space and negotiate space. And so for me, as everybody else said, I don't think there's a philosophical difference in the training plan for men versus women, but I do find myself cueing the men a lot differently and spending a lot more time on different skills involved of negotiating the barrier with the men that I don't necessarily have to with the women until we get to a point where we're talking about running sub 12.7. Like you can get away with a lot of nonsense going from 13 mids to under 13. But once you start trying to go under 12.7 down to world class, now it's time to, get into so
Absolutely, yeah.
I think the men's race is inherently harder to transition through the levels of junior high to high school to professional. And, I wish they'd raise the women's hurdles up, but we all know that's not coming anytime soon. So.
Nope. And I'll say this, when you talk about the rules they don't understand in regards to hurdles, I'm going to take it a step further. They don't even know what the rules are. So when you start talking about them, they look at you like you're speaking a foreign language. I think the other thing, we talk about with the men's hurdles, like you only get, say, 75% of your stride length, especially depending upon your height on the men's hurdles. You get a guy like Grant or some of the taller hurdles is probably more like 70%. So you really have to work and find ways to choreograph that. And I think the best way I could describe it for you is there's a lot of women's hurdlers that are good indoors at 60 that are still pretty good outdoors. Not so much for the men. There's a lot of men that run well at 60 meters. But those last 5 barriers, because of the technical aspect required by the men, has a large effect on men at 60 hurdles, or so from 60 to 110 meters.
And you know what, Lucius, that's a great point. And, you can see that. You
Yes.
can see very, very clearly with some of the men are like, okay, that's awesome. But when we go outside, there's no way they're going to survive that.
Exactly. I'm gonna see you in a few weeks outside. Yeah.
and the stride length, the sprinting stride length versus what is required in between the barriers is probably the number one thing that people don't really understand. I'm 6'3". That was a problem for me when I first started to learn how to run faster in my event. And a lot of that I learned and on our panel right here, Mr. Anderson. But like the women can get most of their normal stride length in between the barriers, especially the smaller ones. Like your Jasmine Stowers, maybe not so much, but your Kennys and Briannas and all them, they can do most of what they want to do in the real sprint. And so, it's beautiful to watch, but I have a deeper appreciation for the male hurdlers that can run at the elite level because it is so much more complicated of an event.
This is so fun. It has to do again with what we just discussed. The spacing to the men is proportionately even shorter than it is for the women. So they have that much more of a problem. And I'm not so sure it is a philosophy. I don't know if it fits into that category. I would call it more a regulating principle. But the thing that I don't know if I find it I don't know if I love it because it's a challenge or because I absolutely hate it because there's very little we can do about it. The thing about the hurdles, it does in fact require the focus of a serial killer to run the event. People who run the hurdles must absolutely attend to what they're doing for a long period of time. And I think that's true in the sprints, but it's double true in the hurdles. And I will even venture this. I think nearly every athlete, or at least certainly even the athlete I coach, and I don't think that's a particularly, unusual sample, at least half of the mistakes they make in training and in races are concentrational. They're not physical errors.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're having to tell them all the time, get your head into it. You can't just think about this for 4 hurdle units. You've got to think about it for much longer because as soon as you stop, the race doesn't run itself. That's the hurdle you're going to run up on. So we're coaching concentration as much as we are physical technique, which is pretty complicated.
Yeah, the 2 words that I love to use are focus and retention. We have to focus today and then retain that and focus again tomorrow. Because that's always the problem. They look like a 13 flat guy today and then tomorrow they're back to 14-1 and it just drives me crazy.
Yeah, every athlete I've ever coached will tell you that I've said this 1,000 times in their life. My favorite word in the English language is retention. Because if you coach the hurdles, we cannot keep going back to square one. It requires too much of you. And I love the way Vince described it. I've always said to hurdlers, you have to learn to be able to do surgery in the middle of a 3-ring circus. Like you have to be able to be an absolute assassin in the middle of just pure chaos. Because there's all kinds of stuff going on within 13 inches of you, right and left. There's just chaos going on. And you have to literally block all that out and take in information. And oh, by the way, interact with 10 barriers. And coach has done all these wonderful things. He's given you weights to be stronger. He's given you all the training he can to make you faster, but he hasn't moved the obstacles. Yep. And so what has to improve to everyone on this panel's point is your ability to concentrate and navigate.
I think we just blew everyone's mind right now. Everyone's being like, what? Philosophy? I love it. Well, let's talk a little more on coaching philosophy, and we'll delve in. And this topic is special to me because of everybody on this little panel right now is amazing in what they do. What is the importance of coaching trees? from the inside perspective of being maybe the roots of the coaching tree, the trunk, and from the outside perspective of viewing others' coaching trees. What are the importances to you, and what should be the importance to those looking from the outside in?
I can go first on this one. I think that coaching trees are essential, in my opinion, to continue success in the sport. Not one of us has what I would call an original idea. And even if we do have an original idea, it was something that was spawned by a thought from someone else that sparked that original idea. So I think the key with the coaching tree is, as you said, like you can be the trunk of the tree, but then also, while, I might be the trunk of this tree, that I might be the branch of someone else's, and understanding how to play the role that you need to play. And when you're developing that tree, if you're the trunk of that tree and you invite somebody to be one of your branches, then you have to continue to feed into them so they can therefore grow, and then they can become the trunk. And that's how the sport continues to get better. So that's my thought. I just think that it's essential. I am very proud of the folks that I've had the opportunities to work with over the years, and I hope the people that have worked with me are proud of me.
Yeah, that's very well said. I agree that every great coach has been well taught by someone, or in most cases, several people. And I to dovetail into what Lucius said, like for using me as an example, my first mentor was Tom Tellez, and I think and he was a wonderful mentor, and I learned really, really important things from him. But no one person is the source of all knowledge. And so what I think is really a sign of growth is when you are a young coach and you really tap deeply into your mentors, but then maybe you see some aspects that maybe they're not as good at, and that's where, you search for other people maybe who fill those gaps in, and you begin to coherently, it's not random variety for the sake of variety, but you sort of start out with a layer of important things that you see gaps in. And this is where I think all good coaches are good. They see those gaps and they look to fill them with other models, and it can really become a beautiful thing from the inside.
I want to jump in here. And I just want to say, for me, this question is very near and dear to my heart. I mean, hell, if I'm going to be completely honest to the rest of the world, two people that I've learned a tremendous amount are on this panel. And I have, and I've coached against the other one as well. And I would just say, I think essential was the right word. That's why I clapped. Essential to have coaching trees and to be willing, like to me, the best part of my relationship with Lucius is I have learned a tremendous amount from him, but I have also been blessed to have a mentor who will listen to me. So I've also been able to teach him a thing or two. Clearly I've gotten more than I've given, but the beauty of that is like, there's so much value in that. And, knowing that what I know and what I've been taught, stands the test of time, but then also knowing that I have a safe enough space to throw in the occasional idea, or what if you do this, or if we change this, what happens? And, to share videos that's how you get to be great, is to work with a master chef who will say, look, I break eggs left-handed. That doesn't mean you have to. Break your eggs this way. Try it something different. And, for me, like, one of the greatest accomplishments I think I've ever had in my mind as a coach is having Vince Anderson tell the people how smart I was. And I had no idea that was coming, because I didn't get that.
You don't
Yo,
get
I,
that very often, so you better embrace that one, brother.
I
For
think
nothing else, you're smart. I'm telling you.
I think Vince Anderson is Mensa smart, and he always refers to himself as not that bright. And I keep thinking, if he's not that bright, I literally must be illiterate. So, at the end of the day, to sum it up for me, I think coaching trees are essential, and they go back to, I think, a conversation we had in the very, very first show about mentorship and being open-minded to be able to teach and learn. And so I think bringing it full back, I don't know, what is it, 15 shows later, mentorship all plays into coaching trees, and you got to pay homage and honor to the people that you've been blessed to learn from.
Absolutely.
Like if the kids you coach don't know where it came from, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Like every kid I've ever coached, they know who Mouse Holloway is, not because he is the coach at Florida, because when they've had the opportunity, they've met him and they've told him, like, we hear your name all the time. Like, well, that's because I want you to know from whence it came.
That's a beautiful point.
For me, coaching trees has always been something that has bothered me about the way people in our profession look at them often. That people look at them as like something that's going to help them get ahead in their business, and they don't take enough time to appreciate the relationships and the learning and the trust that is supposed to go into what that whole dynamic is supposed to be about. Me, when my kids who I've trained as collegiate athletes get into coaching, that makes me smile more than anything, because they've all have come back to me and said that I was a direct influence for them wanting to take up this profession, something that they never really considered doing when they were walking in the door to college. I've even had kids that have gone back and started in the same place that I started at the high school level. They just wanted to be able to give people bits and pieces of what they say they got from me during those times. And to me, like, that's special. That's something that is exactly the reason that I do what I do for a living, because of people when I was a kid who invested in me and saved my life in many different ways. And so to me, when people don't have those connections and don't have those interactions and want to do superficial things to claim that they're a part of person X's tree, it really bothers me.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't just cheaply attach yourself to this person and call them a part of your tree. Like, that's not how this gets done. That's not how it's supposed to be. And so for me, essential is a great word, foundational is a great word, but for me, it's even deeper than that. The people that I consider, the people that consider themselves part of my quote unquote tree, are people that I've been in real battles with and have clawed through real difficult times with. And we've had our arguments, and we've had our moments of strife, and we've had our struggles, but ultimately we learned from each other and we came through it on the other end. And the people, my journey through this business has been, I think, a little bit different, because I definitely have learned from so many people and have respect for so many people. But I don't know if there's anyone out there that considers me a part of their tree. You know what I mean? Like, I really don't know. I haven't asked those questions. I haven't had those conversations. I think that the people that have affected my thought process and my emotions through this business are more so the personal relationships that I've developed with them, not necessarily X's and O's that I gathered from them. And that's something that I've always, found really, really interesting. And to Lucius's point, there are absolutely no new ideas. We are all regurgitating, legendary thoughts and ideas from many people from before us. We are all standing on the shoulders of those who came before us. But I really think that coaching trees are vital to our profession. I think they're vital to the development of our kids. And I think that when you can righteously attach yourself to someone who affected your career in a positive light, I think that relationship is special, and I think that it should be cherished, and I think that it should be promoted.
There's another aspect to this too, not to take it in a negative direction, but it's something that not everybody, and I have no one in particular in mind here. I personally, every head coach mentored me. And that's great. You know, I was lucky to have 3 coaches who invested themselves into, all 4 head coaches I worked for mentored me, and I learned a lot from them. When we all mentor people, I know you guys all mentor people, you put yourself into that and you take that very seriously. Yet what I have noticed as a general trend, I have had the privilege of recommending, several people for jobs. And I get the distinct feeling now in a lot of situations that the art of mentoring is getting lost. A lot of head coaches want to hire an assistant who is turnkey ready to go. And there is no such thing. Head coaches still have to coach coaches. And like when I go to the warm-up area, to use Lucius as an example, not only do I see him taking right care of his kids, I see him teaching his coaches. That is necessary. And that's not a slight on those young coaches, because nobody, no matter how brilliant they are, knows everything. They simply haven't had the experience. You have to help them along. And I've seen a lot of young coaches get derailed because they accepted jobs, and the head coach at those positions thought, well, they have to do everything. They're ready to go. No, you still have to work with them.
Yeah, I know that is an incredible point, and we watch it happen way too often. And, to your point, my number one job is to coach my coaches, to help them coach the athletes we have here. And I think even if it's a bit of a seasoned coach that you hire, you still have to coach them to do the way that you do the things on your campus. The worst thing you could ever do to a coach of any stature at any point in their career is to bring them into a situation and just turn them loose and not give them any direction. Because inevitably they're going to trip and fall. And then that's not their fault, it's yours, because you did nothing to help them. And, speaking of something we talked about earlier, I think the biggest thing people have to understand is stop being afraid to have the conversations. Vince and I have had these long conversations. We rode back from Europe once, and there was a guy that basically got up and moved. Like, he couldn't handle us anymore. He asked the stewardess to move. We're on a bus, we're in a warm-up period, wherever we are, there's always an opportunity to learn. And so when you have those down times, you're with someone that you have respect for, and it's really a time when you can speak to them, find the time to have that conversation, because you never know what you're going to learn. And then we have to stop with this rhetoric that my way is the only way that works. No, it does not. But you never know, as Lamar said, he and I've had conversations. He's talking, like, damn, I never thought of it like that. And I call him back the next day and said, man, I tried that today. That was good. And that's what it's all about, man. Communication. And that's, even if you're the branch, you can teach the trunk something, right?
And you know what? There's a flip side to that, because that's absolutely true. The flip side to that is when you're in the position of the assistant, the younger coach, the mentee, you have to be willing to take the time to be coached.
Yeah.
Because if you're not, you're going to ultimately fracture that relationship and miss an opportunity to get attached to the tree. You're going to miss an opportunity to learn as you go forth. When I was in a fortunate enough position to be a head coach, and I was bringing in people and hiring them, my number one thing is, and I told every single one of them, I'm like, you're going to leave here eventually. And if I can't send you out to do this job properly without me, then I have failed. And I refuse to send anybody out into the world with my name attached to them that aren't ready for that particular, that next step. And think that there are a lot, to Vince's point, I think there are a lot of head coaches that are missing that opportunity currently where, you know, just come in, get your job done. Like, well, hold on. There's some instruction that needs to go on there. There's this path that you need to help put them on in order to not only let them do their jobs well, but do the jobs at the standard in which you want it done. Like, it's your program. You have to, you know, teach them the way it needs to be done and get done right. And that goes from everything from interacting with the kids to doing the paperwork to learning how to become a professional and talk to administrators. I see so many people in a position like, yeah, you know how to make a kid run faster, but you will never survive in a position where you have to deal with administration, in a position where you're held responsible for people underneath you. And that's to me the beauty of our profession when done right, and the worst part of it when done wrong.
And understand that very rarely do people get fired for what they're doing on the track. They get fired for what they're doing off of it.
Absolutely.
Problem number one.
Wow, that was deep, and I hope everybody rewinds that about 2 to 3 times and listens to that all over again and just really absorbs all of that, because I think it's being definitely highlighted right now with our current climate, just having to blindly navigate everything that we're going through. So you need to lean onto those that not necessarily been through it, but definitely have some insight to it. So Coach Anderson, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your presence. Thank you for your contributions, everything.
Big league, before we let the great one go, we never gave him a proper introduction.
Very true.
Like we just kind of said, hey, and we know everybody knows who he is, but you know, we need everybody to really understand the greatness of this man, the many great things he's done for this sport, the many people he has mentored and helped, everybody on this panel included. And I just want to say thank you for everything you've ever done for the sport, and you know, keep on keeping on. Like I don't want to go through your resume because we don't record for 3 hours, so I don't have that much time. You know, but I would like to challenge someone to try to figure out what the Elvin Johnson's about. And you know, if you guys can figure that one out, you're good.
Right. You can comment on it.
That is well stated. There are very few people in the profession that we all share that I consider legendary, and Mr. Vince Anderson is legendary. And you know, I can only hope to attain such a status one day in my lifetime, but VA, you thank you for everything.
Listen, I genuinely love y'all, and you know that. And this was a blast, and the honor was truly mine to join. I call y'all the Brain Trust. So
let's be clear. Let's be clear about one thing. We have not had this conversation yet, but when we do the GOAT assistant coaches, let me just say for the record that Vince Anderson is mine.
Hey,
you claim things in advance
ahead of time.
Hey,
you know what?
I have. Look,
you got too much fresh air today.
I got a shirt somewhere that says "I licked it, so it's mine." Yeah, that's my guy.
Exactly.
And with that,
yes.
Love you, Coach Anderson. Love you, Coach Anderson.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Later, man.
Yeah.
Man.
Wow.
Got it. That's disgusting. I just got a visual of like a licking of the face. That's what I just saw. My apologies.
Only Lamar.
I'll ask Lucius, are you okay? There's a storm that you are sitting under right now. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. Like
so far.
Yeah. Scary. I can hear it, and then it's all flashes. So making sure you're good.
Yeah, I'm good.
See, I need people to understand we go hard in the paint to make this show happen. My man he's waiting out a tropical storm right now, but we're gonna get this show done.
Yes, we are.
Oh goodness. All right. So transitioning into I'm sure we're going to ruffle some feathers and people are going to have comments about this one.
Absolutely.
Right? Oh my goodness. High school goats. So across the nation, up, down, left, right, and center,
So we get a track and a field.
and a gender.
One male, one female.
Correct.
So a male track, a female track, a male field, and female field.
Correct.
Okay. Well, I haven't gone first on any of these so far this year. I guess I'll go first with the women, or the girls, I should say, if we're doing high school.
Right.
On the track, I'm going to start there. And going through this, there were a lot of names that were in consideration for me. But when I started looking at the criteria that I wanted to put behind this, for me, it actually became pretty obvious. To me, it's Sydney McLaughlin. And here's why. 13:34 in the short hurdles, 38:90 in the 300-meter hurdles, the only woman to break 39 seconds. Okay. 51:87 in the 400-meter dash, 53:82 in the 400-meter hurdles. And for me, if I'm going to give a distinction to the high school GOAT, having to make the Olympic team while in high school is going to have to be a part of that equation. And so for me, it's Sydney McLaughlin.
Okay. I was with you, and the reason I did not pick Sydney, because I knew that you were going to. And because when you look at Sydney's numbers, they're absolutely gaudy. They're absolutely just retarded. But since I couldn't pick Sydney because I knew that you were going to, and I knew that if I went first and picked Sydney, you might come through the screen. I'm probably going to surprise some people. You know, I went with Mary Kane. You know, Mary Kane ran 159. She ran 404 in the 1500. She ran 428 in the mile, 902 for 3,000, 938 for 2 miles, 1545 for 5K. You know, the same kind of deal. So it's like, and I think obviously the caveat for, I think she made a world championships team, made the final. So, you know, that was great. And obviously Sid making the Olympic team was wonderful also. But when you look at what Mary did on the track as a high schooler, that's absolutely phenomenal. It is.
Well, I am 100% sure that I'm going to surprise some people. And I will give this one brief caveat. For me, this particular person, I agree about Sid, and I did the same as Lucius. Like, we're not gonna all pick Sid, but I picked someone who did something that I just don't think anybody else can do. And I know it sounds like a homer, but at the end of the day, everybody runs in their own state, and it is what it is. But Lena Irby winning the state championship in the 100, 200, 400, all 4 years, and never losing to a high schooler in the state of Indiana is worthy of GOAT status no matter what state, because it's not like she finished her high school career having run 54 seconds in 24:10. Like, she was a monster. She beat everybody she raced in high school. She lost a couple times in high school, but not to high school people. So at the end of the day, I'm going to pick Lena because the person whose record she broke was Micelle Malone's, who her only blemish was to lose the 200 her freshman year. And literally in Indiana, pretty much no one thought anyone was ever going to come close to approaching that. And Lena went out and crushed everybody and did it. So that's my answer. I stand pretty firmly behind it, and I'm looking forward to the rest of these answers.
Okay. So we're gonna go male track now.
We can go male track. Somebody else going first.
Go ahead, Lamar.
Whoo, man. You know, I'm just going to stick steadfast to my answer. And Lucius 1,000,000% knows what my answer is. The best high school track and field athlete that I have ever seen is Michael Norman.
How did I know that was happening?
I can't. Here's the thing. I can make cases for other people, but at the end of the day, you got to stand behind your word, right? I called you from the California high school state meet, and I said he's the best high school track and field athlete I've ever seen. And you said, well, what about this person, this person, this person? I said, I agree, and I saw them all, and we agree on it. I was like, but at the end of the day, Michael Norman could have been anything he wanted to be in high school.
Okay, and Norman was on my list, but I knew the two West Coast guys were going with Norman, so I'm like, I'm not fooling with Norman. So I kind of ventured over to the East Coast, and so I had two guys on my list. My two guys were Alan Webb, who obviously broke a record that has stood for a long time, and he didn't just break it; he broke it by over 2 seconds. And my other guy was Noah Lyles. Noah's 10-14 in 2009 in high school, came within a spot of making the Olympic team. That was one of the guys that Lamar and I used to debate about who was better, Lyles or Norman. So, but at the end of the day, honestly, I'm going to go with Alan Webb, just because, he broke a record, by a legendary athlete, and he broke it by over 2 seconds. So I'm going to go with Alan Webb with a side note for Lyles and Norman.
I want to give mad props to Lucius for going all the way outside of what people would generally consider his box and pulling two distance names out and legitimate answers to this question. So everybody should give him mad props for that. Now, for me, this was an interesting debate, and the names that I considered, two of them have been thrown out. There is an absolute case for Noah Lyles. Absolutely. Michael Norman definitely was in that conversation for me. And being a West Coast kid, I was putting these two gentlemen up against the most famous of the West Coast kids, I think, Obi Moore. And you know what I mean? Like, when I had to go down and go pound for pound across the board, at the end of the day, it came out Michael Norman for me, but just a little bit. And the reason is because of his ability to do all things. Obi, as everybody remembers, elite, craziest thing we've ever seen in the 400 at that time, could also run a hell of an 800. And if he wanted to step down and run the 2, he could. Some of the things he did to legitimate teams in relays are still things of legend. And if you don't mind grainy YouTube videos, I challenge you all to find the Obi Moore high school 4x4, The Rundown.
Yes.
It is
incredible.
Ridiculous.
Yes.
And when you consider that the kid he ran down from 100 meters at the start didn't run slow, it's incredible. But Michael Norman, 45:19 in the 400, 20:06 in the 200, and 10:27. It's the 10:27 in the event that he rarely ran that put him just over the top of Obi for me, and just over the top of Noah. Obi couldn't do that in the 100, and Noah never attempted to do in the 400. Never attempted to do in the 400. I ain't gonna say he couldn't have done it. He probably could.
I'm not sure Michael Norman ran 10 hundreds in high school.
No, and there are videos of his 4x1 pop-off prowess, which.
And see, and the reason that I picked Lyles over Norman, did Norman ever beat Lyles in high school?
He didn't. Lyles won the 200 battle at the Olympic trials, and given my answer with the women, if Lyles would have made that team, I would have gave it to Lyles, but he didn't.
Okay, that's fair.
Or I had to give the overall body of work and the
I was just
spread.
And like I said, Lyles and Norman was tight for me.
Yeah.
But like the whole thing with 453 is fast. I mean, 353 is fast. I'm sorry. that's just fast. And then to break the record by 2 seconds.
Legendary record. Legendary.
Yeah. So that's what did it for me. And then plus, you know, I'm proud of you with the Obi Moore comment. Even though you went with Norman, I'm proud of you for bringing up Obi.
Oh,
bless you, big.
You can't be from the West Coast and not bring up Obi.
That's true. All right, well, we better move on because Lucius is getting dark over there.
I will definitely say that it was a leaning at the tape of Michael Norman over Obi Moore for me as well.
Okay.
Honorable mention thrown out there to William Reed. He only did one event, but man, did he do it?
He did it well. Yeah.
All right, so female field.
Whew. I mean, this one was really tough, and I'm just going to tell you who I went with, because the other two that you guys might discuss, but I went with Vashti Cunningham. I mean, she's the national record holder. 10 times she jumped over 6'4". I think she was a world indoor champion as a high schooler. And then I think she has 7 jumps higher than the second place person. Yeah.
That last stat I didn't actually know.
So I delved out to the West Coast on y'all for that one, so y'all would expect that.
You did. Now this one was much harder for me to get to a place on, because this is not my typical field of expertise. But I'm going with Michelle Carter.
Okay.
I'm going with Michelle Carter. I don't know how many titles she ultimately won down there in Texas, and I never had, I never had the opportunity to see her throw, but the dominance in which she had in her time and the distances that she put out there, and I felt like she was really, really special, and I couldn't think of anyone in the field that grabbed my attention on paper the way that Michelle Carter did. And so that was my answer, Michelle Carter.
So I will say I'm proud of you two track heads for coming up with some very quality field event people. But for me, I'm going to be honest with you, it took me about 1.5 seconds to come up with my answer. Keturah Orji. I mean, I'm sorry. Curb stomped everybody from freshman through senior year. Like, I mean, I think the only reason it's close, honestly, is because of Vashti and the fact that she was just absolutely dominant. But I'm just not sure that any high school female jumper really even wanted to be in a meet with Keturah, long jump, triple jump, or whatever.
That didn't change much in college either.
It sure did.
I was gonna say, like, I don't think there's anybody within like 6 years of her birthday that's ever beaten her. You know what I mean? Like she's one of those kids. Like, if you start at T-ball and go all the way up to 12U, she beat everybody.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to give you a couple of more people that are definitely in that league. I'm going to start with Shelby Vaughn. 198 feet in the discus. She has the best 10 marks ever in high school, from 191.6 to 198.9. The other person is Anna Hall. Anna Hall has the top 5 all-time marks in the hip. So, they definitely deserve some mention. But last time, because of the World Championship, is what put it over for me.
All right.
So now we got the field guy.
Boys guy. I feel.
Well, I'll go first, and this one wasn't tough for me. And if you saw him compete in high school, I don't think it would be too tough. Donovan Kilmartin. I mean, his high school marks are 7.2, 17.6. Broke the national record in the decathlon 3 times. Literally, there were people who thought that even going from the 12-pound shot to the 16-pound shot, that he was going to win the NCAA title as a true freshman, which is ridiculous because you're going up 3 inches in hurdles and going up 4 pounds in shot. But that's how much better than everybody else he was. And to be a combined eventer and manage to be an elite high jumper. He also jumped 25 feet in high school. So you got 7 feet plus, 25 feet plus, and 17 feet plus, which is even better than the ridiculous high school marks of Gunnar Nixon. So for me, it's Donovan Kilmartin.
So how long did you say it take you to figure that one out?
90 seconds or so.
Okay, it took me about 9 seconds to figure out mine. I'm just going to say this, 81 feet, 3.5 inches, and I'm done. Michael Carter. I mean, that record has been around for 41 years.
I didn't take it from anybody else. I knew someone was going to take that one.
And he's still 4 feet further than anybody after 41 years. Okay. And he's got 5 times he threw over 71.11. And so it took me like that long. Michael Carter.
Well, I'm going to actually change mine and agree with Lamar. Lamar convinced me for the exact same reason that I gave the issue to Norman. I'm going to agree with Lamar and defer to Kilmartin over Carter, which was my answer. One event versus the array of events. If it's
81.
No, listen. I get it. I understand.
It's hard not to get that in.
No, I understand. That was my answer. But
so those of y'all watching, go in your living room and just mark off 81 heel toes and see how far that is. And it's going to be further than that because your foot's out of foot.
As far as dominance is concerned, that's not a conversation. But I like the argument that Lamar made for his pick of Kilmartin. It's not often that he gives us a straight up, clear, coherent, shut it down kind of argument. So, hey, man, props to you. And I'm going to roll with you on that one. I'm going to go with Kilmartin.
I greatly appreciate greatly appreciate that. I do want to give a side shout out to one Tommy Skipper, who was national record holder in the pole vault and the national leader in the javelin, and also a 6'10" high jumper at the same time in high school.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
And I'll say this, we're never going to have this conversation, but Tommy Skipper is definitely, until I saw Flamingo, Tommy Skipper is the best freshman I've ever seen in college track. Until Flamingo.
Okay.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So before we lose Lamar to no sunlight, we're going to introduce a new segment. This evening, going forward, we're going to start closing out our shows with our heartbeat props. In this segment, we're going to highlight people who've personally affected our coaching careers, put us on our paths, have influences, that whole entire spectrum. So,
did you forget a question?
I didn't forget a question. I omitted it only because of the sunlight.
Okay, I'm just making sure. I apologize.
No, you're okay. I want to make sure that we can still see him.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I apologize. I was like, whoa,
okay.
I missed something.
Yep.
We'll get to that one next week.
Yes. So again, we will start doing this going forward and closing out our show with the heartbeat props. Lucius, why don't you go ahead and start us off?
Yeah. And again, the idea of the heartbeat props is to give people, as us old folks like to say, give people their roses, their compliments while they're alive. And so I'm going to start mine off this week. I'm going with Brooks Johnson, a man that I met him when I was 17 years old. And from the very first day I met him, he's done nothing but challenge me to be a better human. The better coach I became, the better he's challenged me to be. I don't ever have a conversation with Brooks where I don't walk away from that conversation feeling like, man, I just got better. So I want to thank Brooks for being him, for his unbelievable wit, his colorful phrases, his ability to make the art of cursing, like,
Eloquent.
It just happens. Eloquent, yeah, And for you young guys out here, don't ever debate with Brooks Johnson. You have no chance. So that's my guy, Brooks Johnson.
I'm gonna jump in here and I'm gonna be quick. My guy and somebody I've literally known since I was 18 years old, and somebody who had this profound of an effect on me. My mother still remembers him from when he recruited me in 1989. I've gone from thinking he was like my dad to joining the same fraternity as he's in, being welcomed into the coaching fraternity, and being honored enough to coach against him. And that's one Mr. Curtis Fry.
Well, for me, appropriately so, mine is Vince Anderson. And I met Vince originally while I was transferring from UCLA and trying to figure out where I wanted to go to school. Now, ultimately, I chose Curtis Fry and the University of South Carolina. But of all the coaches who recruited me, both coming out of high school and during my time as a transfer, Vince was the most authentic. He was the person who I absolutely had the best connection with, and the person that I trusted the most of all the coaches that I met. There's just something real about Vince. And to his credit, the fact that he ultimately lost the recruiting battle to a rival school, he never held that against me. And he remained, you know, a good person to me, to the point that when I graduated and wanted to come move to Knoxville, Tennessee to be under his tutelage in my post-collegiate time, he welcomed me with open arms. It wasn't even a more than a 5-minute conversation. He said, absolutely, you be here anytime you want. And moving forward in that, you know, my post-collegiate career lasted about 2 seconds because I tore my hamstring almost immediately. And then Vince got the job at Texas A&M and went on to his new path. But as I started getting into coaching almost immediately after collegiate time as an athlete, Vince Anderson is the reason that I'm in this profession right now. Vince thought enough of me and thought enough of the work that I was doing with high school age kids in the city of Knoxville, Tennessee, to write me my first and what still remains to this day my best letter of recommendation ever. And I asked him to write me a letter of recommendation because, truth be told, he was the only person that I felt I knew well enough or had any kind of real connection with to ask him to do that for me. I had no idea what he thought of me as a coach. And the words that that man put to paper, I was going to embarrass him and read the whole thing, but we don't have that kind of time. He is the reason that I'm in this profession. And any of us that have come up through this profession, we all understand it's about who you know, not necessarily what you know on so many levels. And I would not be sitting here today. I would not have the career that I've had if it was not for Vince Anderson co-signing me at a time in the world where I'm not even sure I had earned the right to be co-signed by that man. But he put his name next to mine. He put his trust in me. And I've always wanted to honor his example throughout my career. So VA, as I said earlier, legend, and thank you.
Your hamstring's thanking him right now too, so.
That was definitely not his fault. That was definitely my fault.
Yeah. So to give my 2 cents, and similar to what Clyde was just saying about, you know, having that person be why they're here and where they are and what they've been through. Not a lot of people know who she is, and to me, she's cherished in my life because of what she's done for me and who she's been in my life since we were 18 years old. But that's Christy Prasad, because without her, I would have never gotten back into coaching. I had completely left the sport of track and field. I was a bartender at the time. I was busy creating a family, and she was like, no, that's cute, but you're going to have to coach because I need you. And she forced me, you know, and because she knew I would take the bait, and I took it and haven't looked back since January of 2009. So I owe it all to her, because without that little push and that little nudge, I mean, I would not be sitting here sharing 4 screens or 4 pictures with the 3 of you. So fully and wholeheartedly indebted her for the rest of my life, and she knows that, and I love her to death. So thank you. But before we completely lose where you masked, Don't wear a mask now. Although, it's been a pleasure, and I appreciate all three of you for allowing me to sit on the same screen as VA. So that's awesome, and to share the screens with the three of you, I am wholeheartedly thankful because you bring so much light to my life every week that we do this. So, and I'm sure everybody else, all 150-ish subscribers that we have.
Well, Big League, you know how we feel about you, girl. We couldn't do it without you.
Well, someone's got to push record. So, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Anyhow, thank you so much for your contributions, gentlemen. And until next week, we will see each other then.
Peace.
Good night.
Good night.
When the lights come on, the road just get to running. When the lights come on, opponents smash the plumbing. Heard you like it warm, hot knife the butter. Truth pin them hard, knock them off that rebuttal. Tsunami, tidal wave to your puddle. Tough love punch you in the arms, little brothers. Athletics LLC, there's no others. Track and field's place to appeal to go further. Hey, Wile E. Coyote, it's road runners. Feels like you know us, you've been with us the whole summer. If not for this quarantine, these four corners wouldn't be here, but we here, so start learning. You gotta earn your stripes, gotta get your scars. Show you how to fight, but show us who you are. You lack experience, but still you wanna talk. And who is actually talking to you? Circle's kinda small. Heads prevail when the backbone's strong. Gotta keep it coming, no, it won't last long. Pass or fail, then sell the sad song. And if you don't check yourself, then that's wrong. Just trying to give you the real that you asked for. So why you keep cutting us off to ask more? We put it in slow-mo, but you fast forward. Athletics LLC, the task force.